It's August the 1st, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on what's left of the Three Sisters Permaculture type garden. As you know from previous videos, if you've been looking at them, the raccoons attacked and destroyed the corn. I have one of the original corn plants that I started in the house early in the spring that they didn't tear down. At least they haven't torn it down yet, and it has a couple of ears of corn on it. And several more of the ones that I planted from seed are starting to, well, they're 2.5, 3 feet tall coming up. So I'm sure the coons are just waiting in the woods for them to get big enough they can come in and get the corn off of them as well. But I am going to get some squash, maybe some pumpkins, and the beans. Even though the corn plants were torn down, that didn't stop the beans. They're in bloom. They were cannellini, Italian shell bean. There are little beans on there and the flowers. The big advantage has been the permaculture side of things. It looks a mess with weeds. I can't stand looking at it. Not that I'm that neat a gardener, but I've always tried to keep things relatively weed-free. But this summer all I've paid attention to is the mounds, and the mounds have kind of got neglected a bit here. But all of the wildflowers and things that have bloomed in here have certainly brought in a lot of pollinators. That is evening primrose. It's got to be 4 or 5 feet tall and has had lots of blossoms on it. Down in that lower corner is a mullein, verbascum, wild verbascum, and next to it is the brown-eyed Susan that self-seeded itself here. I haven't seen one in my garden in quite a few years, but I have been hand-pollinating the squash and pumpkin blossoms as much as possible. And I don't really think it's been necessary. I've never hand-pollinated before, but I always lost a lot of the pumpkins that didn't get pollinated. But these tall yellow flowers have brought in a lot of bees, and usually when I'm out here hand-pollinating, there are a lot of bees around wondering what on earth it is I'm doing. So I think the idea of having a lot of these wildflowers around has really been beneficial. It gives you a better idea. This is a corn plant, which I think is one of the ones from seed. I don't believe it's one that's been left behind by the raccoons, but it has beans all the way to the top, and they're in bloom. So I may have to dig around in the weeds some come harvest time to get the beans, but I think I'm going to have a fair amount of beans. The squash are still quite small, but I have a number of squash. It's a hybrid winter buttercup type squash. I don't think I've grown the particular variety before, but very disappointing the way that it started. Normally any squash or pumpkin plant starts with a lot of male blossoms, and you don't find female blossoms usually in the first week or so. Well, this thing, just the opposite. It started with at least 5 or 6 female blossoms, and of course nothing available to pollinate them. They were all lost, but since then the pollination has been working really well, and I think I stand a chance of getting a few squash and hopefully a few pumpkins out of the patch. Lots of male blossoms now. Actually, this morning I don't see a female blossom, but they may open a little later in the day. This is quite early in the morning. But that's it, just a little look at what's happening in the Permaculture Three Sisters garden. I see one more thing over there I'll go give you a close-up of. I didn't notice myself until right now, but there are some fairly good-sized beans. Must have bloomed out early. Yeah, that patch has some beans on it that are growing quite nicely. I don't know, that one must be 3-4 inches long, I guess. Anyway, thank you for watching, and that's just the little update on the Three Sisters garden. I'll continue to show you through the rest of the season, hopefully when the squash and the pumpkins are a little bit bigger.